Hello everybody, JGC Anime here. Today we are going to be reviewing Dr. Stone. The first season, just the first season, not the second season. We'll be covering that at a later date, but that's the special that came out. But whatever, we'll move past those for now. We're just going to talk about the first season today. So, yeah, without further ado, let's just hop right into this. So, what is the premise around Dr. Stone? Basically, the world was turned to stone at one point where all the humans were turned to stone. Nobody knows what caused it, but then around 3,700 years later, the main character, Senku, ends up breaking out of the stone, and after the world has been returned to kind of like the jungle age or the stone age before science, he is now, due to him being an incredibly smart scientist, he's trying to bring science back. However, after accidentally bringing back a dangerous enemy, he now has to face that enemy on his way to try to resurrect the human race from whatever turned them into stone in the first place. So, yeah. Some spoiler-free thoughts. I really enjoyed rewatching this. This is actually my second time watching it from when I was reviewing it. I actually just finished it up, and it was honestly such a fun rewatch. I thought maybe I was getting bored of rewatching a lot of the same shows, but this show made me realize that I'm not actually getting bored since I had such a fun time while I was rewatching this show. It was so much fun getting to re-experience watching these characters grow and how the story plays out. It's just so good. Senku as a main character is so much fun. How he is a good person, but he doesn't fear trying to push things for science, such as forcing people to do labor and stuff because, you know, for science. And it's just so good because Senku is a good person, but he doesn't always treat everybody kindly. He has to constantly try to work out scenarios in his head and try to help people by introducing them to science. And he's such a fun protagonist. He's probably up there as one of my favorite protagonists because he's just a lot of fun. It's weird for me to describe him any other way. He's just a lot of fun. And it's especially interesting because when I learned that Dr. Stone, the first time I was watching it, was going to be more of a science-based show, I wasn't too sure. I was like, am I really going to enjoy this? But no, the science is actually a lot of fun. As someone who doesn't really like science, the science of the show was absolutely amazing. Like, despite the fact I understood none of it, I didn't understand a thing of what Senku was saying. It made the science of it was still so fascinating to me that even though I highly doubt I'll ever remember anything that I've learned from this show, they make science an actually fun thing to watch. It's kind of like how Bill Nye, for a lot of people when they were growing up, he acted as like this gateway to science while also staying highly entertaining. And that's kind of what Senku does here as well. He's kind of like the Bill Nye of anime, where despite the fact that science is normally a pretty boring topic that doesn't have anything super interesting going on with it, Senku has somehow managed to make a story involving science actually a lot of fun. And the writers of Dr. Stone did a phenomenal job making it so that way the science is such a fun aspect of the show that whenever a problem comes up, I always end up wanting to say, yeah, let's do some science. You guys go. Science is awesome. It's just like, it's giving me like this new respect for science that I didn't really have. And it's just so much fun to see Senku do all these things with science that I never even knew, like how to make cola. I mean, not the exact like explanation of how to make cola, but he gives you the basic ingredients of how to make a okay cola. And you get to kind of like dive into these different things involving science. And for the longest time, when I was first watching it, I thought this was just a bunch of random stuff the anime was making up. But then I looked it up, and apparently some of the stuff that Senku makes in this show is actual science. And I think it may involve similar to what the Food Wars situation was, where in Food Wars, apparently the person who wrote the manga got some actual chefs to help him draw the dishes and give an idea of what they would taste like in real life. And I think that might have been the case here. Maybe the people who worked at Dr. Stone had someone on hand who really understood science and used them to kind of get a grasp of the science of everything. And I just really found myself enjoying a lot of the show and a lot of the characters as well. Even the villains, who we can go over in the spoiler section, even the villains are amazing. Even though they're not like too focused on in this season, I'm pretty sure that's next season where the focus lies. I really enjoyed the villains of this season, as they're threatening enough to make me feel nervous around them, but at the same time, I don't feel like I can't understand them. So, yeah. that's all I can really say without spoiling anything, so we're gonna hop into the spoiler section now. Here's a timestamp to when the spoiler section will end. If you have seen Dr. Stone, I'd recommend sticking around to hear my thoughts, but if you haven't, you can skip to the end so you don't get spoiled. But again, if you have seen it, I'd recommend sticking around. So I'm gonna count up from 5 and we're gonna enter the spoiler section. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So there is definitely a lot of interesting science in the first season of Dr. Stone, such as the fact that they not only build all kinds of gadgets like glasses, as well as, I believe they build a phone at the end of the season, as well as like a record player, and it's just, they do so many amazing things in this season. It's crazy that they can make science be so much fun, because in the beginning, when the story first started, it was a bit hard to get going, because first we're introduced to Senku, as well as his best friend Taiju, and Yuzuriha, and our soon-to-be main villain Tsukasa, who, honestly, even though I don't agree with his method of killing all the old people and only reviving the youth, I really do like Tsukasa as a villain, because he makes weirdly kind of good points. Because again, while I don't agree with it, he does raise a good point of like, if you people are revived in the Stone Age, a lot of them will try to claim land that no longer belongs to them, and will try to go back to a lifestyle that they love, but they can't because, well, that's no longer existent 3,700 years in the future. And I don't approve of Tsukasa's methods, but he does make a point. Again, I don't agree with it, and I highly appreciate Senku just wanting to revive everybody. So yeah, there's that. And there's just a lot of moments of this show, moving past Tsukasa since again, I just think he's a very interesting villain since I don't agree with his methods, but I understand them. Moving past that, there's a lot of other characters that I find really interesting in the show as well, such as Gen, or Asagiri Gen, who is someone who originally kind of seems like an enemy of Senku, but turns out he's very intrigued by Senku's ability with science and wants to join the Kingdom of Science after Senku makes a light bulb. And Gen is probably one of my favorite characters from this series, just because of the fact that, unlike everybody else who's confused by everything Senku's talking about, because literally everybody else that Senku hangs out with after the first few episodes don't know anything about science and stuff, because since they're in the Stone Age now, they meet a village where Senku goes to a village and meets a bunch of people there and explains science to them, and it goes in this whole fiasco. If you've watched the show, you know what I mean. And it's just kind of fun seeing Gen, unlike everybody else, just be like, "Are you kidding me, Senku? You want us to do this?" And it's just very funny to me. I very much enjoy it. And that's another thing I can kind of talk about, the comedy of this show. The comedy had me laughing a lot. Like, even though this show isn't mainly a comedy, it has some really funny moments in there. Like, there are so many moments where I was just laughing, and a few moments where I actually felt sad, such as when we learned that Senku's father, who was in space at the time of the whole everyone being petrified thing, when he came down to Earth, ended up setting things up for Senku in the future. Although there is this one thing I was confused about, where Senku said he and his father weren't related by blood, when I don't know if it was that way for anybody else, but the two of them looked so similar. Like, if you told me they were related, I would believe you. Like, they look so similar. The fact that they said we're not blood related, it felt a bit strange to me because they looked so similar. It's really hard to think that they weren't related, but that's just how it is. Actually, kind of going through designs, I also questioned a few of the character designs in this show. Like, why do so many of the characters have their eyes like spread halfway across their face? I don't know. Their eyes are weirdly like far away from the rest of their face. I don't know what's up with that, but it doesn't really distract me. In fact, I only was bothered with it within the first few episodes. After we got to like episode like 10 or 11, I got used to it. And yeah, I will admit the beginning bit with Yuzuriha, Taiju, and Senku and Tsukasa, it was a bit long. Like, I felt like it dragged on a little bit, but not for too long. I definitely feel like it did overstay its welcome, but it felt a bit longer than I would have preferred. But again, I wasn't too bothered, as it was still highly entertaining, especially with the drama between it looking like Tsukasa had killed Senku, but then Senku actually had a little plan, and his friends helped revive him. And honestly, it's just the show kept me so invested in these characters that it's really hard to talk about every single thing they did because there was just so much happening in this show. But overall, it was so much fun to come back to, and I think I just really like Dr. Stone a lot. It's such a fun show. It's so good. And I definitely would put it up there and probably one of my favorite animes. Like, it's definitely up there as some of my favorite work that I've seen from animes I've watched. And it's just making me very excited to see future seasons. And it's 10 billion times more fun than I thought it was going to be on the rewatch. It was such a good show. And while I don't think it was perfect, there are definitely moments where I did find myself getting a little bit bored. Overall, 90% of the time, I was having a great time. And maybe that's a bit higher of a number than I probably should say, but overall, it was so much fun. And if I had to continue the series, which I plan to, I'm very excited because season 2 is where things are going to get actually serious. Like, it's going to get really serious since it's only 11 episodes instead of this season, which was 24. And then there's the special that came out that I haven't seen yet. That's the only Dr. Stone thing I haven't seen before. So that'll be really fun. And yeah, I'm very excited to keep going and see what is awaiting me for the future. And yeah, we're at the conclusion of this video, and what are my final thoughts? Honestly, very fun show, very few flaws, had a good time. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but for the most part, the comedy was very good, the characters were entertaining, and the story had me very well invested, and it didn't really feel too rushed or slow. It did a decently to pretty great job at keeping me enthralled throughout the entire season, and I'm really glad I sat down and watched it, which is why I give Dr. Stone Season 1 an 8 out of 10. Very solid, very good show, liked it a lot, and I'm very much looking forward to watching Season 2 in the near future. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say, so thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I also bring new anime fans to the channel, and I will see you all around. Peace!